A father's death is the most important event, the more heartbreaking and poignant loss in a man's life. The mind is like an iceberg, it floats with 1/7 of its bulk above water. The voice of the intellect is a soft one, but it does not rest until it has gained a hearing. Unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. At a woman's breast love and hunger are crossed. Out of your vulnerabilities will come your strength. The goal of all life is death. One day, in retrospect, the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful. The mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be kindled. Love and work, work and love, that's all there is. I cannot think of any need in childhood as strong as the need for a father's protection. The first requisite of civilization is that of justice. No flies fly to a boiling pot. One day in retrospect the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful. The most important part of your life is to understand yourself from the inside. The more perfect the person is on the outside, the more demons they have on the inside. The interpretation of dreams is the royal road to a knowledge of the unconscious activities of the mind. Most people do not really want freedom, because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. The mind is like a labyrinth, where the thread of Ariadne is only found by some. Happiness is a child's dream fulfilled in maturity. Every normal person is really only partly normal. A woman should soften but not weaken a man. One is very crazy when in love. The mind is its own place and in itself, can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. Where ID was, there shall ego be. When inspiration does not come to me, I go halfway to meet it. The best is always the enemy of the good. Being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. A husband is almost always only a substitute for the beloved man, and not this man himself. Limitation in the possibility of enjoyment raises the value of the enjoyment. Every normal person, in fact, is only normal on the average. His ego approximates to that of the psychotic in some part or other and to a greater or lesser extent. We are what we are because we have been what we have been. The dream is the liberation of the spirit from the pressure of external nature, a detachment of the soul from the fetters of matter. The psychical, whatever its nature may be, is itself unconscious. Out of your vulnerabilities will come your strength. We are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love. Religion is a universal compulsive neuroses. Recognizing a problem as half the success in solving it. How bold one gets when one is sure of being loved. The voice of the intellect is quiet, but it never tires of repeating, and listeners are found. The more the fruits of knowledge become accessible to men, the more widespread is the decline of religious belief. The act of birth is the first experience of anxiety, and thus the source and prototype of the affect of anxiety. The ego is not master in its own house. Most people do not really want others to have freedom of speech, they just want others to be given the freedom to say what they want to hear. The only person with whom you have to compare ourselves is that you in the past. And the only person better you should be, this is who you are now. Unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. Depression is a frozen fear. The first indication of stupidity is a complete lack of shame. Before you diagnose yourself with depression or low self-esteem, first make sure that you are not, in fact, just surrounded by assholes. From error to error, one discovers the entire truth. When one does not have what one wants, one must want what one has. Friendship is an art of keeping distance while love is an art of intimacy. Most people do not really want freedom, because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. No mortal is capable of keeping a secret. If his lips are silent, his fingertips speak, betrayal oozes from him through every pore. All family life is organized around the most damaged person in it. Words have a magical power. They can bring either the greatest happiness or the deepest despair. Only the complete absence of sex can be considered a sexual deviation, everything else is a matter of taste. In the small matters trust the mind, in the large ones trust the heart. The scope of one's personality is defined by the magnitude of that problem, which is capable of driving a person out of his wits. We seek more to take suffering away from ourselves than to gain pleasure. Nothing costs so much in life as illness and ignoring an illness.